turn-of-the-century building with the richness of architectural detail of the time and wide views over Manhattan's Central Park. The homes were meant for elegant entertaining, for formal dinners followed by evenings at the opera. So when architect Ira Schachner was asked to design an apartment there, his aim was to restore the original elegant mood, to prepare it for a different style of living, but keep the sense of luxury the same. His client, a young, single and successful man who wanted the best.
I was really detailing it so that it would be appropriate for a single man who had good taste, sophisticated.
Schachner says the starting point for the design of the apartment came from the entrance, an area which he calls the gallery.
Because that was the point where one comes in and really gets, an immediate indication of what they're going to come up against in the rest of the space.
And the feature there is the table and the sculpture.
And the artwork. Well, it's an antique Dutch marquetry table. And sitting on top of it is an astrolabe, which again has become somewhat symbolic of the apartment and the collector, because a lot of the work is symbolic of the heavens and the seasons.
Tell me about the painting in the gallery.
It is a landscape by a contemporary American artist, but painted in the classic sort of Dutch landscape style of painting.
Schachner says the color scheme for the gallery and the rest of the apartment was inspired by the library.
The idea was that every room was going to read somewhat differently, but be very connected in some way. So it began with the library. There's a lot of openness in the apartment, so one tends to read one or two other rooms from wherever you are in the apartment. So there had to be a palette that worked well together, even though the colors are very different from room to room.
The library also features art of different periods, including a serene contemporary painting of a sunset and antique 17th century maps of China. What's the color scheme for the dining room?
Rather than to be a warm space, I wanted it to be a little cooler and interesting, almost an odd color, to give it a little bit of an edge to it. I think dining rooms should have some surprise.
For the living room, you chose a deep color.
I did. It's a very large room, and it was important for the client that he would feel comfortable enough to sit in this room on his own and feel warm and at ease. And that's why it's a much darker, comforting, I guess a little warmer.
Most dominant in the room are the serene but spectacular ancient Greek vases. Schachner says he designed long sofas in the living room for the comfort of his tall client. He designed the coffee table also for comfort and to conceal the audio-visual equipment. Tell me, what was the starting point for the bedroom?
Well, that was a room that had begun as two rooms. The palette for the room really began from my own favorite colors, which are that pale green and black, and put a palette together of those colors and worked with woods that were of those colors. And the idea was to give it, again, a quiet feeling.
That's architect and interior designer Ira Schachner.